Welcome, everybody. What is Brother Goodwin doing sitting here with a picture in his hand here on the studio here at Prophecy in the Spotlight? You're going to find out during the program. This is going up for auction starting today. You got until Friday, May the 2nd to put a bid in on this. Deadline 9 p.m. Central Time, May the 2nd, Friday, May the 2nd. What is this that I have in my hand? This is a print that is signed down at the bottom. You see it down there by Harry S. Truman. Now, I believe it was done mechanically. I think they did hundreds of these. But this one's going to be special because Doc and I are going to include up in the corner. We're going to have like a postcard type thing with you'll see it at the end of the program, the picture that's going to be on here. And it's going to be on a nice brochure kind of a thing. It's going to have your name on it, presented to you. And we're also going to give you a DVD or a flash drive of this program. We're going to give you some things in this program that most of you have never heard in your life about World War II, about FDR, Franklin Roosevelt, Harry S. Truman, who has a very important part to play in the history of Israel in 1948. And we're going to share those things on the program today. All right, so here it is. We're going to ship this to the one who offers the most for us. So you're going to call the 800 number, and you're going to 505 spot 888 505 spot. If you have any of my books, you're welcome to get my phone number and text me your offer. Now we need to know your big. I'm talking. I'd like to see somebody offer $2,000 for it. I'm not saying it's worth more than a few hundred, but it is worth a few hundred just as it is. But with Doc and I, we're going to sign it, and it's going to have a special meaning to you. And you're going to hang this somewhere in your house, and people are going to ask questions. Hey, what is that? And Harry S. Truman, you're going to learn something today. So stand by. Welcome, everybody. Glad to have you listening today. This is going to be an exciting program. We got several slides to put up. I think you're going to enjoy the show. I promise you this. You're going to learn, you're going to hear some things about history that you've never heard before. And I don't claim that I've uncovered all of this myself. I've had some help. I know some of this some of the things I'm going to say I got from Brother William P. Grady, who we've had on our show before. And Michael Samuel Smith's even got a piece of something that I gleaned from him on the telephone just back yesterday. And Doc, we're going to talk about some history here. We're going to talk about FDR. We're going to talk about World War II. We're going to talk about the atom bomb, the Manhattan Project. We're going to tie it all into a man named Harry S. Truman, who is FDR's vice president,
right,
I think, for about 8 years. And and then when FDR dies, he's going to become the president. Well, don't let me get ahead of myself. I want to help you with something. First of all, I want to read a verse. Proverbs chapter 21 and verse 1 says this: "The king's heart is in the hand of the Lord, as the rivers of water, he turneth it whithersoever he will." Let me find that, because I'm not sure that I've read that right. I wrote that down. I was pretty sure it was King James, but I'm not so sure now. Let me find Proverbs. Going the wrong way. Proverbs 21, because I want to make sure we get that right. There we go. Nope, that is right. "The king's heart is in the hand of the Lord, as the rivers of water, he turneth it whithersoever he will." My guess is there's a similar verse to that that I'm thinking of, and something told me that wasn't right, but that is right. So God has a way of doing things in
putting the right people in the right place for the right purpose, the right time.
Yeah.
Yes.
And Harry Truman is shocking as it's going to be for some people, is one of those men.
Yes.
And he's got a big part to play.
Absolutely.
In Bible prophecy. And we're going to bring that. I want to start with the year 1939. 1939, we're coming out of the Great Depression, or we're still kind of in it. But what was it like in 19?
I don't remember. Too far back.
Doc's old, but he don't go back quite
Not
that
that
far.
far.
Now, my dad was a young boy at this time. He was born somewhere in the 30s. I forget what year exactly, but he wouldn't have remembered anything much back then. But there is a ship that came, and she'll put a picture of that up. This is important. This starts us off. There's a ship that came from Germany. It's the MS St. Louis. There it is on the screen. The MS St. Louis actually came to Cuba, right off the coast of Florida, 100 miles from Florida. That was their destination. They came to Cuba. They had passports. They had permission. These are Jews. 900 Jews are on that ship right there. And by the way, that's a real picture. Those are some of the people, some of the Jews on that ship. 900 of them. They were fleeing Germany and what was coming. They knew what was coming at this time. They were trying to get out of there. And Cuba changed their mind. Cuba decided, we won't take you. And so they stayed there about a week or so trying to get something worked out. They contacted Canada. Canada told them, take a hike, you're not coming.
And Cuba's still paying the price for it today.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, think about that. Look what happened to Cuba.
Absolutely.
God slapped them down.
Absolutely.
And so here's, let me read a little bit here. The more than 900 passengers on the MS St. Louis were denied entry by immigration authorities in multiple countries in the lead up to the Holocaust. As the St. Louis cruised off the coast of Miami in June 1939, its passengers could see the lights of the city glimmering. But the United States hadn't been on the ship's original itinerary, and its passengers did not have permission to disembark in Florida. As the more than 900 Jewish passengers looked longingly at the twinkling lights, put that other picture up there of the two portholes, Mrs. Goodwin. And the people looking through the portholes of the ship that you can see down the bottom there they are. Isn't that sad? Those look like young girls over there on the left, or maybe a girl and a boy, I'm not sure. And they're looking down at something, and pretty sad. These more than 900 Jewish passengers looking longingly at the twinkling lights, they hoped against hope that they could land. But their hopes would soon be dashed as immigration authorities in America sent the ship back to Europe. And then nearly a third of the passengers were murdered, and I believe many others, if not all of them, would eventually die. Most of the ship's 937 passengers were Jews trying to escape Nazi Germany. Let me skip some things here. And it took 2 weeks for the St. Louis flying the Nazi flag to reach Havana, Cuba. But the voyage didn't end on Cuban soil. Rather, Cuban officials refused to let the passengers disembark. Remember, we're headed somewhere here. We're headed to Harry Truman. We're headed to Israel. We're going to show you something big here. This is where it kind of starts. Cuban officials refused to let the passengers disembark, and other than about 28 passengers were allowed to get off. I don't know who they were, but then down here a little further, U.S. President Franklin D. Roosevelt, passengers formed a committee, begged Cuban president and the U.S. president for sanctuary. When it became clear Cuba was indifferent, if not hostile to the refugees, the ship sailed toward the United States, about 100 miles. They didn't find sanctuary there either. An attempt to land in Miami was rejected by immigration authorities. And by the way, that means the president. Yep, president's in charge of that. We know that. And a desperate cable to Roosevelt by some passengers was ignored. These people are desperate, Doc.
Yes, they were.
Know if we go back to Germany, we're going to die. Our families are going to die.
Coming. Yes.
Through a U.S. diplomat, though a U.S. diplomat had tried to negotiate with Cuba, the U.S. itself was unwilling to open its doors.
Yep.
The passengers would have to abide by the existing quota, blah, 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 blah. Let's see. Jewish refugees a year before the St. Louis sailed had already dropped the idea, both because he knew it would be politically unpopular and because of his increasing focus. This is United States here. Roosevelt had considered he had considered bringing some Jews a year early, but he decided because of politics. Yep. That's what it says. I'm not reading it all, but because of politics and being on politics, he said, we're not going to do it. It'll look bad.
They're still doing it today. They stick their finger up in the wind and see which way it goes.
On June 6, 24 days after the St. Louis left Europe, it turned around to return. It was accompanied by a U.S. Coast Guard vessel, listen to this, Doc, on the lookout for desperate passengers who might jump off the ship. They were that serious about not letting any of them off. They had a Coast Guard ship follow them until they got out to sea, just in case some of them might have jumped ship, tried to swim to shore. It's awful. The jet refugees also applied to the land of Canada, but his prime minister refused to entertain the idea. If these Jews were to find a home in Canada, said Immigration Minister Frederick Blair, they would be followed by other shiploads. The line must be drawn somewhere. We're not accepting them. By the way, the little tidbit here that I got to be careful how I say this because there's a cuss word in it, and I'm not going to use it. But on record is FDR making a statement while the ship is off the coast of Miami, and to the people in charge, he said, you make sure you don't let a single, one blank Jew step foot on our soil. He's on record saying that. What a terrible thing. What a terrible thing to say.
He didn't last long either.
So the next thing, let's go on to the next story here. And by the way, that ship goes back. That ship is part of history now, a sad story.
Sad.
You'll hear about that ship in Jewish history. And the Jews, they never forgot it, And, but something else happened sometime after that. And this is from Saudi Arabia. It was not much later, after the secret correspondence between FDR and the Saudi Arabian king surfaced. So we didn't hear about this till later on, and there are men who have actually seen the document, Doc. It's part of history. It was written in Arabic. The Saudi Arabia prince had contacted through the mail FDR, and I'm not going to read it all, but I've got some stuff highlighted. He was worried about Israel because there was already rumors about the United Nations putting them back in Israel. And the Saudi prince had written FDR, who was the president, his concerns about this. And he did not want Israel back in the land. He said, they're terrible people, and this will hurt us. And well, on April 5th of 1945, FDR responded with an extremely warm note. In it, he offered the king of Saudi Arabia a firm commitment. Now, it was in Arabic, but here it is in English. Your Majesty will doubtless recall that on previous occasions I communicated to you that I would take no action in my capacity as chief of the executive branch of this government which might prove hostile to the Arab people. As long as he continued to serve as president, he made clear that the dream of the Jewish people of return to their homeland would not be fulfilled. Those were his words. When FDR sent this letter in Arabic to the king of Saudi Arabia, 7 days later, FDR is dead. Get that. 7 days later, God takes FDR out. And guess who the vice president is? A man named Harry S. Truman.
Amen.
That a lot of people don't know much about Truman. He's not one of the
who had
esteemed presidents.
He had some proper Christian training of prophecy in his background too.
He did, and he had business dealings with Jews. And look, just to read a couple things here, we can now see, looking back, the fingerprints in the replacement of FDR with Harry S. Truman. See, you may not have saw this at the time, but years later we can look back and put this puzzle together.
And the best I understand, the cabinet that he had all was opposed to it. And he went against his own cabinet to do what he needed to do right.
Okay, so FDR dies 7 days later. That day, and I have the dates here, April 25th, 1945, President Harry S. Truman, now I got this wrong, April 12th, 1945, Harry S. Truman becomes, that's the day that FDR dies. That same day, April 12th, 1945, Harry S. Truman becomes the 33rd president of the United States. Now, 2 weeks later, I think it is. No, it's 1 week. 1 week later, April 25th. Now this gets interesting. A week later, after Truman becomes the president, they call him aside, the staff does, or the CIA, whoever, and they tell him the details of something he did not know about, called the Manhattan Project. In my book, 7 Clocks a Ticking, I have a chapter in here about the ticking nuclear clock. I have the whole story of the Manhattan Project, and some of these details are actually in there. And the Manhattan Project is the building of a bomb. That's Harry Truman, by the way, in color, a picture of him there. He died, I believe, in 1972, Doc. I was 12 years old. Don't remember, but I believe it was 72, 74. The picture that he signed was dated 1962 that we're going to offer the folks to put in a bid on. And we're hoping you'll bid high. We need help here to keep on the air.
I was in Vietnam at that time.
He was in Vietnam. And so President Truman is briefed on the Manhattan Project for the first time. He was the vice president for 8 years. He knew nothing about the Manhattan Project. I believe it started in 1939, the Manhattan Project.
Very few knew anything about it.
And in fact, there's an article in here that talks about Truman was actually in charge of something else, and he was working on something, and he was getting close to this, and an aide came and said, "Don't look into that anymore. Stay away from that." They didn't want the vice president even to know about the Manhattan Project. It was secret.
Yes.
And only a very few people working in the Manhattan Project knew what was going on. Just a very few people. And so he finds out about the bomb. Now listen to this. Listen to this. America's secret development of the atomic bomb began in 1939 with then-President FDR's support. The project was so secret, FDR did not even inform his fourth-term vice president, and Truman, that it existed. In fact, when Truman's 1943 senatorial investigations into war production costs led him to ask questions about a plant in Minneapolis that was suspicious. That plant had something to do with the Manhattan Project. Truman received a stern phone call from FDR's Secretary of War, Harry Stimson, warning him not to inquire any further. Stay away from that. Now, when Roosevelt dies, April 12th, 1945, Truman's immediately sworn in. Listen to this. Soon after, was informed by Stimson of a new and terrible weapon being developed by physicists in New Mexico. In his diary that night, listen to this, Truman noted in his diary that night that he had been informed that the United States was perfecting an explosive great enough to destroy the whole world.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know that they could have destroyed it, but in his mind, this thing was powerful.
Yes,
Nobody had ever seen anything like this.
Yes.
May of 1945, Stimson advised Truman that the bomb might be useful in intimidating Soviet leader Joseph Stalin. July 16th, a team of scientists at the Alamogordo, New Mexico research station successfully exploded the first atomic bomb. That was out in the desert. I talk about that in the book. It broke windows, Doc, 100 miles away in the desert. Broke people's windows in their houses, and the government lied to us and told us it was a munitions dump exploded. The government's been lying to us for a long time.
There still are.
Yeah, worse now. And that was the first atomic explosion in the history of the world. In the desert there, July 16th. Not long after that, the bomb is going to, in August 6th, there'll be a bomb. She'll put a mushroom cloud up for you. This is a mushroom cloud. That's pretty scary when you look at that. And now I don't know if this is a real picture or if it's a made-up picture, but that's what they look like. And they're pretty shocking things. And the first one was tested. They only had 3. They had the one they tested. And by the way, I write about it in the 7 Clocks book. It shocked everybody. Nobody knew for sure what was going to happen.
Nobody was expecting it, yeah.
They raised that up in the air and they exploded that thing. And nobody was there, obviously. They were far away. And you read about that, it's shocking how severe it was. And it did far more than they even realized. Now, they had 2 more, and they're going to drop the first one on Hiroshima. Guess who makes that decision? Harry S. Truman, the president. because of the death of FDR, who, by the way, I believe was not a lover of the Jews, was not for Israel. No. God takes him out. God puts a man in place that God's going to has a purpose for here, as we'll see shortly. And so let me see. Let me move on to the next thing here. Harry Truman's decision to use the atomic bomb. The decision's going to be made. And they weighed the pros and the cons. They claimed that Japan was pretty much defeated already at this time, but they wouldn't surrender.
Yeah.
And we were thinking of storming the beaches there like we did in Normandy and all that. And they knew that thousands of our boys would die. And so they weighed the balance here. What would be better? Blow their people up and get a surrender, or lose our people to get a surrender? Right. So the decision was made to drop the bomb. And the first bomb is going to be in Hiroshima, actually. Is going to be where the first one is dropped. And let me read about it a little bit here. Harry S. Truman was notified of the successful test of the atomic bomb, what he called the most terrible bomb in the history of the world. Thousands of hours of research and development, billions of dollars, that'd be trillions today probably. So they had the different options here, and of course he chose the option of dropping the bomb on a place where military was also there. So yes, a lot of civilians died, but so did a lot of people. And I'm looking for something here, and maybe it's in this one. Fingerprints there. That's not the one. It's not that one, and I don't see it. Anyway, there was. What do we got here? Is this it? Let's see. I'm sorry for the delay here, but what happened in Japan? Here we go. Here's what I wanted to read. The temperature near the blast, when that blew up, and by the way, it was in Enola Gay. She has a picture of the plane. She has a picture of that, possibly the pilot up there, Enola Gay. And by the way, I've seen that plane, Doc. It's in the museum in Dayton, Ohio. I have seen this plane. And she has another picture, I believe, of that plane. Is there another picture of that plane? There's not another picture of the plane. But you have a picture of the actual, there it is. Yeah. From what I read, this is from government.com or history or defense.com or something like that. That's the actual Hiroshima bomb exploding, supposedly. I'm told that that's an actual picture of it, of that explosion. And so while you're looking at that, let me read this. The temperature near the blast site reached 5,400 degrees Fahrenheit. The sky seemed to explode. Birds ignited in midair. Asphalt boiled. People 2 miles away burst into crumbling cinders. Others with raw skin hanging in flaps around their hips leaped, shrieking into waterways to escape the heat. Men, I know this is hard to hear, but men without feet stumbled about on the charred stumps of their ankles. Women without jaws screamed incoherently. Bodies described as boiled octopuses littered the destroyed streets. Children, tongues swollen with thirst, pushed floating corpses aside to soothe their scalded throats with bloody river water. One eyewitness at Hiroshima recalled, "I climbed Hikiyama Hill and looked down. I saw that Hiroshima had disappeared. I was shocked by the sight. Of course, I saw many dreadful scenes after that, but that experience, looking down and finding nothing left of the city of Hiroshima, was so shocking that I simply can't express what I felt. Hiroshima didn't exist. That was mainly what I saw. Hiroshima just didn't exist." That's one eyewitness account there. Approximately 80,000 people were killed immediately as a direct result of the blast. Another 35,000 were injured. At least another 60,000 would be dead by the end of the year from the effects of atomic fallout. And I'll bet it's far more than that over a period of time. And and then there's the second bomb that gets dropped. And
it ended the war.
Yeah, April 12th, and then August. Not the 12th. August 6th, and then August 9th, they dropped the second bomb on Nagasaki. And same results. And Japan finally threw in the towel and gave up and surrendered.
And all of this to bring Israel.
Yeah. And to close this out, the king's heart is in the hand of the Lord as the rivers of water. He turned the wheels through a wheel. 7 days after President FDR snubbed Israel and told them to go ahead and die, he said they'll never be back in their land. We won't allow it. God takes him out 7 days later, right to the day, puts in Harry S. Truman, a lover of the Jews, a supporter of the Jews. He drops the bomb, ends the war. But the story doesn't end there. It ends in 1948 with Harry S. Truman, when Israel is finally given the land by the United Nations, May 15th, I think it is, 1948.
Yes.
I think it's May 15th. The first phone call, the first dignitary, the first world leader to endorse and accept that decision and accept Israel as a nation was Harry S. Truman.
Yep. And do you reckon that it's possible that as a result of our president doing what he did for Israel caused America to become the greatest power the world has ever known?
Yep. And we've been the defender of Israel.
Yes.
For all these years. I know there's times we waver with different presidents, but we have helped establish Israel as what they are today.
Yeah.
And God is involved in these things. There's no doubt God had his hands in what happened with FDR dying and Truman taking over. Yeah. Truman being the first dignitary, and a very important dignitary, I might add,
yes, endorsing
Israel as a sovereign nation of the world for the first time in over 2,000 years. And is that the budding of the fig tree? And, so here we are. So what a story. What a story. Now, she's going to put that final picture up for you. This is Doc and I standing right here, sitting right here with the picture that we're offering for auction. We want you to call the 800 number and you got to give your name. We need a phone number so we can get a hold of you in case you win. The highest bidder that bids by May the 2nd at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time, that's the deadline, call in your bid. How much would you give for this? We're going to mail this to you. There'll be a picture on it. This picture will be up in the corner with Doc and I are going to sign it, and we're going to put your name presented to you. Would you like to have this? I think this will be precious. Every dime that comes in from this is going into the ministry to promote our TV show. So call the 800 number, 888-505-SPOT right now and put in your bid. All right, until next time, keep your eyes on them skies.